Microphone check, 1, 2, what is this? It's the 5'7" assassin in the podcast business. I am your host, Rohan Patra, the rap music plug at your service.
Here we are again at the end of a rainbow.
Styles of music like jazz, R&B, soul, funk have all been inseparable elements in the fabric of hip-hop production since its inception. One particular form of music that has not played nearly as much of a significant role, though, is rock music. Now, not to lie and say it's never been incorporated in hip-hop before, but it definitely has not been incorporated to the same degree. And on top of that, on just a personal level, I have always found that guitar is one of the absolute hardest kinds of sounds to be pulled into a rap beat, as I often find it sounds overly cheesy and falls flat 9 times out of 10, even when used by some of the best producers to ever live that I will not name drop at this moment. That brings us to the subject of today's episode, Ritual, an album by Topeka Kansas rapper Stik Figa and producer The Expert based in Dublin, Ireland, whose production features a healthy dose of psychedelic, fuzzy rock samples that are executed brilliantly, where he puts those sounds into a blender with traditional golden age sounds and jazz sounds that rap purists will surely appreciate. And that's not all that makes Ritual notable, because when it was initially created, it was being positioned as potentially the last album that MC Stik Figa would ever create. So to learn more about Ritual, Stik Figa, and The Expert joined this show to dive deep into how this album was made as the next installment of the album Alchemy series. The Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV is the remedy to the I don't have anything good to listen to problem. Through in-depth album and song reviews, as well as artist interviews and general rap commentary sprinkled in between on all of what the mainstream and underground rap scenes have to offer, this is your one-stop shop to knowing what to add to your queue, play next, or pop into your record player. Welcome to the show. Welcome, Stik Figa and The Expert. How are you guys doing today?
Hey man.
Doing
good.
well.
That's dope. You two are the creators of this dope new album, Ritual, which drops on Rucksack Records June 16th. And before we really get into this dope project and how you guys tackle it and all that good stuff, we have a bit of a RMPP first going on here, and the fact that you guys literally have not met before. And
Correct.
That's something when I was told prior to this recording, I was like, okay, I mean, you've called, you FaceTime. I know The Expert's in Dublin. I'm not that surprised you haven't physically been together, but you're like, nah, we have only called, texted. So this is crazy to me because the record, you guys just have such a good chemistry. It seemed like you were in the studio physically doing this. So let's start with this. Like, how were you first introduced to each other's music?
Oh man. Okay. I feel like Expert got to tell that because I did a song. We're gonna make the story make sense because I feel like I did a song with The Expert in 2012, but the song ended up being another song for Germicide later on. Black Tears, I think it ended up being. So that had to be like 2013. But like I had a whole song, I think, but that my part of the song ended up being part of Germicide's song. And I don't remember when that record was released, but I feel like that goes back to that long ago. Is that right?
Last year, yeah.
It just got.
Was this on the Overview Effect?
Yeah.
Oh, it's that track. Okay, yeah. Dope.
Yeah, but that goes back a long way. Like that record goes back to 20 something. And an Expert reminded me that we have been chatting since 2013 about working. I mean, I feel like we've talked in between that though, via social media, just out of mutual admiration, for what we do. And then we got reintroduced because of Hoslow. Hoslow was working on a record. Me and Hoslo became friends probably in like the last 3, 4 years, and you guys were working on a record. I
Yeah,
wasn't even planning on making any more records. We're getting that later, but he hit me and was, I don't know if Hoslo and you guys stopped working on that record,
yeah,
but then it turned into, yeah, you want to make a record? It is. And then Hoslo was like, yeah, you should do it. Like we chop it up. Anwar now, but yeah, he was like, you should do it. You should do the record, and that's how this one came to be. But 2013, that's at least a decade that
yeah,
me and this gentleman have been going back and forth.
Damn.
So it's kind of crazy.
yeah. So I suppose back in like 2012, I think it was, I was trying to get a producer kind of album together. And it was actually really the genesis of the overview effect. I was selling it as What's Going On meets Edan, Beauty and the Bee.
Mm-hmm.
And I had maybe kind of Curly Castro, Haslow, Zilla Rocca. I think I even approached Def C at that time, back then, a decade ago,
Damn.
and
Wow.
Stick and Germicide. And so I had bits and bobs, but people were busy, weren't getting back to me, and then maybe the the concept of the record wasn't coming together. And I was like, okay, now this is kind of turned into a bunch of tracks, so I'm not really sure what to do with this. And then anyway, through that time, I would have kept on building and doing tracks with kind of the Wrecking Crew posse, and then Haslow and me started working on a record. And I think we might have recorded like 5 tracks, and then it just kind of petered out because Haslow just kind of stopped making music for a few years, and
Mm-hmm.
he's surfaced again. But during that time, when he finally said, "Look, I'm holding it up for a while," he told me that he had a song written with he got vocals back with Stik Figa, and I was like, "Oh no way! I'd love to hear those vocals." And I think that's when I hit up Stick, and he sent me the vocals, and I was like, "Oh, I got to use this. We got to build on this." And that was actually really the first song for this record, which was Zambezi Zinger, and that's really I think when we kicked off Stick.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. For sure. It's
And
kind of been a wild ride to this particular record. You know,
indeed, yeah,
10 years in the making, bro. That's kind of wild. Cause like, yeah, cause that would have been when I had just put out City Under the City around that time. I think that's around that time. Me and Larange uh were either in the process of making that or it gets released that same year. So
yeah.
yeah, it's been a minute.
And just to say, like, I absolutely, I suppose the reason we got in contact is because I am a massive Stick Figure fan.
mm-hmm.
And that goes back to 2012. It's not like the last few records. Like I would have loved the releases with D Will back when, Conductor was D Will and
Mm-hmm.
all those records. And then of course, just his catalog is so deep. He's got so many dope records, and yeah, so I've kind of been hounding him for for many years
Mm-hmm.
to do a record really, and he finally got it over the line.
Yeah. Humbled, man, humbled to
Yeah,
hear.
man.
And like with this kind of collaborative relationship in mind, that's pretty unique. Like, how did you guys end up working together to make something so seamless given these circumstances? Like, was this a lot of just truly just text messages trying to like align on the vision for it, and then it was just sending beats across the pond?
Uh
Um, Go Stick.
I would say expert is really good at knowing exactly what he wants, which is great for me because like I don't mind being produced as far as like as a rapper. I know a lot of rappers come into something like, well, it has to be X or Y or Z before, but I don't mind letting a producer provide direction in what they're looking for. So a lot of it was expert sending me joints, me writing to them, sending different performances, or even if he had like a specific rhyme in mind. Like he may have heard a rhyme of mine and was like something in that
Mm.
line of style would be dope on this. So I can tap into that and it gives me like direction. So I think letting the producer produce the record is a big part of why the record sounds so good. As far as like its theme, its pace, its and it's just overall sound. I think Expert deserves a lot of the credit for that because he's very specific and knows exactly what he's looking for. So I give him credit for that happening because when it's me, if it's just me, man, I'm just gonna rap about rapping. It's like my favorite thing to do. That's like my that is my like
Your bass song.
setting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's to rap about how I'm a better rapper and how I'll smash your mom, you know. So that's why I need producers. So like, no, don't do it. Don't do that. It has to be about
And
something. What
and
you do?
I gotta thank Stick because I've this has been attempted on other occasions with other artists, and it hasn't worked out for me. Like there's, I think, since Overview Effects, maybe some of the people on the periphery or who I haven't worked with that have been now become more open to the idea. But I think until they maybe saw the full vision or a version of the full vision, they were a bit skeptical and just like, man, this is good enough or this will do. Whereas I think the art of the album sometimes gets lost in just creating tracks, whereas I'm very much uh thoughtful of what will it feel like and sound like pretty much on a record if I'm being even more specific. Like how side A ends and how side B starts and side A B ends.
No, that
So
attention
if you
to
don't like
detail is clear.
yeah, it's like Zambezi Zing. Like, is that the one where it's like it actually slows all the way down, kind of before? That's how side
Mm-hmm.
one ends, as if the record's almost stopping, and then we're back in on the next side with Lonely Planet. So like it's all yeah, it's I would say I'm quite a detailed producer, and that's probably tells in the music itself.
It really is there. You can see it in just in the way that transitions are handled. I find like it's just really deliberate, and like I find especially, and we'll get into it later about the features. I find every different person, whether it's Stick or some other feature coming in, like they're like introduced. It's like they're like
Mm,
beats slightly like molds to them. I noticed that a few times on like I think when Blue comes in and then
yeah.
when the Sleep Sinatra comes in, both of those are exceptionally good with there. I'm like, damn, like they're really giving like they're like coming on the stage on Broadway, like
Well,
getting their little moment in the sunshine. It's pretty
maybe
dope.
maybe we should talk about that, but just to say, like that Sleep Sinatra verse was probably the most worked on piece of music on the whole record because I think Stick would know I had 13 different beats for for that section.
Yeah.
He recorded to one beat and for some reason the boat was thought it just didn't quite it the song kind of lost something in the second half. And I think I did like 13 different versions for his section. And I think in the end, I think I sent you maybe three of them, and you were like, "Oh, this is the one. This is the one." Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It happens a few times on a record.
yeah.
There's another record. What did we name it? The Planet Lonely Planet. I think
Mm.
I rapped to something
I
different.
was over a different beat. Yeah.
Yeah, like I rapped to something different, and then Expert was like, I got these other joints that I think fit better in this part of the record. So then
Yeah.
we went through joints that we wanted to to fit in that particular space. So again, man, like I said, I've always been in a space with producers like
Mm.
who actually are detail oriented. I don't think I've ever worked with a producer who didn't care a lot. Like you'll be like whether
Hmm.
it's Odyssey, he's super like he was probably the first person to feel like that's the first person I worked with where I was like being produced, where it was
Yeah.
like this song is about this, it needs to have this mood, and it needs to have this kind of motion to it and this feeling to it. And then just kind of trusting that. And then Conductor Williams as well. Where it's more with Conductor, it's more of like a energy thing because we were in person a lot and we're like actually friends. So it would be like, I mean, we're friends too, seeing. I'm just saying.
I
Like,
know.
we homies too, man.
No,
Don't
man.
trip. But I'm
Hey,
saying
it's
like
the
me
first
and
time you're
you go
meeting
back,
me, you know?
like to the early 2000s. So,
Yeah.
but like Conductor's whole thing is always like, how's it feel? How you feel about that?
Mm.
And then and I'm not a producer. I've tried before. Like my beats are terrible, and
Mm.
there's like a certain there's a certain energy that producers have around details
Yeah.
and emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I think with music, where even if they can't communicate it to you with like plain language, they know it should feel a certain way. So
Mm.
I just always have been. I've up until this point, I've been kind of led to just trust a producer's talent and ability to communicate certain emotion. So with Expert, it's the same thing where it was like I was like, oh, so you want a different beat for this? Why? And then he would
Mm.
say, he would explain it. And
No,
it,
yeah, well, a
all right,
perfect
that makes sense. You know,
yeah,
that makes
because a
sense.
perfect example is actually Lonely Planet because it was on a much kind of more chilled beat, I think. And
Yeah,
when we decided it was going to be the first song on side B, I was like, we have
You
to
need to
start with
pick me
banging
up.
drums.
Yeah.
We just
need to pick
absolutely
me
have
up.
to start
Yep.
banging drums, and that's when the change happened. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's dope.
and the Forgotten. I think we went through like maybe 5 different versions of the Forgotten.
Yeah. I thought you were going to kill me.
Nah, it was all good. I was like, the only thing that's funny about that song in particular, only reason it's funny to me now is we picked the first one.
It
Not
happens.
all
That
of the
happens a
first one,
lot.
but yeah.
Not all of the first one, but
Yeah.
like there was like 3 or 4 takes.
Yeah.
There was like just different energies we were going for. It did in the end, I think in the end it was a new beat, but it was the same first performance. But like that was fun, man. Like I was like, this dude really cares though. Like that's the thing. Like I appreciate that. Like caring about the end result is where it's at. Because if it
Yeah.
was me, I'd have been like, I don't know. I just don't see why this version isn't. But when we got on the other side of it, I was like, oh, I see why. It makes
And
sense.
look, that's maybe something Stick will talk about later, but there was something he kind of told me about halfway through the project that really changed how I produced the project. And when I knew kind of that was going to be the last song on the album, I when it needed a specific feeling and a specific way. Yeah.
So let's get into that. That sounds very intriguing. What is the thing that you told the expert that changed his way he produced it halfway through?
I told him this is my last album.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is
So
that
I sincerely hope it's not, but it definitely changed how I produced the record.
yeah. I told him it was my last album. And then such a great guy, man. Just kind of like trying to encourage me in a different direction. While still respecting, where I was coming from, with that feeling. It's kind of it went from being my last album to maybe I need a hiatus.
hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he did his job, guys. He talked me off of
Thank you. Thank you very
he
much.
talked me off of the Q word, He
Yeah.
talked me off of that Q word. But yeah, that's what the Forgotten is ultimately about as far as a rhyme is concerned. That song is about when I was really deep in that feeling, I was really like 80% pretty
Mm.
sure that I was like, yeah, it's the last one. So this rhyme is the last. This is the last rhyme. Like this is the last
Yeah.
rhyme. This is the last. Because it's one of those things where I read a even the title comes from. I read an interview a long time ago. I think it was Conan O'Brien.
Hmm.
Super random, I know, but I was like in a doctor's office or something, and Conan O'Brien was talking to the interviewer, and they were talking about the inevitability of being forgotten. And he's like, does that scare you? Like, are you afraid of that? And he was like, nah. He's like, it's actually kind of freeing because I know that I'm not special. Like, eventually at some point, if it takes 80 years, 100 years. However, we all get forgotten, with the exception of very few characters like Jesus. Like, you got to do a lot. You got to do a lot to beat those odds of being forgotten. Even, I mean, with the exception of your family, your kids and stuff. But I was just kind of in this space where I felt like I was feeling two things. Firstly, one day I did this exercise. A friend of mine told me, write down all your releases, everything you've ever put out.
Must be 15, is it?
I know
20?
this. I've put out a record of some kind since 2009 and never missed a year.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was like, man. And then like two feelings happened. I was like, I did all of that and I'm still like super duper underrated. That was the first. I was like, I don't think people really tap in like that, you know. And then I started, and then the second feeling was, well, at least you were productive, you know.
Yeah.
At least you were productive and you were committed to this, because I was already talking about it in the past tense. But now on the other side of it, I'm just more like, I may just have gotten burnt out on business, online style of marketing, feeling like a hamster wheel, you know? So maybe just some time is what you need, as opposed to putting a fine point on, I don't want to do it no more. So, and y'all can all thank Expert for that. Like I said, it went from nah, bro, I'm done, I'm cool, to all right, man, we just take a break. So, but
And
yeah.
look, maybe you won't come back, but I think there's leaving the door open is always a good idea.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds pretty clear to me that you're not losing steam. You're at like you've been rap, especially this record, Joyland, the two last Conductor projects in particular, and this one. I feel like and I really love that Pookie shit a
I
lot.
love the Heresy album.
Yeah, that one was really good. Like, I just feel like those last several projects you dropped have been really good. So
shout out to Sean
you know,
P. Yeah, he's another guy who
P.
keeps talking me off the ledge too. Because
Yeah, and Sean P, I want to say thank you to Sean P here, because he recorded all the vocals for the record.
Yes,
so he did a great job.
He recorded all the vocals, and he was very generous with me in getting that done. And it's wild because Pookie ends up kind of becoming part of the writing process for this one. Because like when I started writing, or the other way around, sorry, when I started writing for the Expert project, I was getting into a good rhythm of writing, you know, thematic things and coming up with a concept, and me and Sean P discussing concepts. So yeah, they kind of work together, and it's kind of cool they get to come out in the same year. Like,
yeah,
it's really dope.
Yeah.
So shout out Sean P.
So this question for the Expert here specifically, when I was first introduced to you, was through the overview effect with Germicide, and you mentioned it actually earlier, like that comparison was made to Eden's Beauty and the Beat, and that always stuck with me because that was like the first thing I was like, damn, that's a very weighty comparison to make. But I thought it stuck because that style of production is, along with really what Eden did on that record, was like the best kind of example of like hip hop and psychedelic rock sampling.
Yeah.
Really unique, really not tried by a lot of producers, because it's really hard to pull off and not be trash, to be quite honest. And I think on this record, you've really taken that like kind of sound, and it's never sounded better. So describe the kind of like musical space you were trying to put Stik in on Ritual.
Yeah, so I think I just come off of the overview effect, which is very psychedelic, I think, and I suppose was still in that zone a bit. And I think the first batch I sent Stik was quite similar in that vein. But as far as I remember, he only picked like a couple of beats from the first set. But then when I knew which ones he picked, it was actually more introspective, and even the words, the lyrics he came back with were introspective, and I thought maybe I should lean into that, and I think that's where I suppose more the jazz element comes into
Yeah.
it, and I just those type of chords and the weightiness of the sound I think really suited what he wanted to talk about. And like I said, when I knew this could be the final piece of the puzzle for him, I wanted to make sure the words, while the production is very detailed and there's a lot going on, I'd like to think for most of the verses and when he's spitting and doing his thing, it's actually giving him room and adding weight to the words, really, is what I think. Yeah, so I suppose, so the jazz stuff, and then just wanted to kind of like, I'm such a fan of Stick Figure anyway. Like, this dude can do any style, any flow, can do stories, like, he's so versatile, which maybe in hindsight has been a problem for him because he's so versatile. He hasn't stuck to a simple lane.
Mm.
So I wanted to give him the opportunity to do all of those things, but with the same color palette or with the same sonics, so that instead of him doing halftime raps, or sorry, double time raps over halftime beats and stuff like that, but that it was still psyche and jazzy rather than, I suppose, him over different type of drums on his next
Yeah.
song on different albums maybe didn't link quite as cleanly. No disrespect meant there at all, but you know what I mean. I think just to give it all in the same world, and I think in particular, I suppose my version that is maybe President Street that we do on this record, which is like really heavy bass line, and then the kind of
Hmm.
really, I think the biggest psyche guitar piece on the record kicks in, and then he kind of comes back in, and it's just, yeah, I think it's a real Stick Figure song, but in my world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that definitely does. Like, I really like how where you place that too, because I think I think that follows the Def C track, right?
Yeah,
Service. Both of those were like a kind of a little detour, but it
yeah,
still fit. But they were like the more experimental, the more out there kind of feeling that I think it fit really nicely. It kind of like brought you in that world, and then I think it ends with like I think the Sleep Sinatra track is follows that, right, and then the
yeah.
closer, of course, that are like yeah, bring you back a little more soulfulness, a bit more jazz. It was just a really well kind of sequenced project generally. Like it had a lot of great flow.
Because I think if you do go crazy early, sometimes you can lose people. So I think that
Mm.
the album is kind of front loaded with kind of sucking you in type of songs. And then I suppose we get a little weird after that.
Mm.
That was the idea.
Yeah, the beats are just really in like a constant state of evolution. That's what
Mm,
I would say. That it's just really handled beautifully because it doesn't lose me. It all seems to kind of like make
yeah.
sense. Like whether it's weaving in when like a new verse comes in or it really was handled very nicely, like very apropos to like kind of the music you're kind of like pulling from.
Mm,
And that's actually something I wanted to ask too is like see, given the fact that you are from Dublin, you're from Ireland, like does your close proximity to an area of the world where psych rock and the golden age of that sound, like
mm.
being in that area in Europe, like was that a did that does that play a significant role in how you develop like the sound palette that you pull from?
I think it probably does, yeah, without me even realizing as much. Like UK music is huge here, like guitar music, would be very big, especially in the 90s and the 2000s when like kind of that whole Britpop scene, I suppose, went over to you guys. But while maybe Oasis and Blur, I'm guessing, made it big over there, like there was thousands of bands over here that we would have all loved as well and stuff like that. So it's definitely been a part of my life. And I suppose I probably worked in Tower Records for 6 years when I was younger, and I would have went through A to Z pretty much of every genre when I worked there. You just kind of go through them all, and like along with obviously hip hop and kind of jazz and soul, like just I wasn't that au fait with kind of the deep 60s psych stuff, and it was the one genre when I was going through all the stuff, I was like, holy shit, this is so creative. This is amazing. And just how it sounds, I was really attracted to. So Like I had been making beats like that in like '04, '05, and '06, a few things, had bits and bobs, but when I heard Beauty and the Beats, I was like, holy shit, someone's downloaded my brain. I was
Mm.
like, this is what I've had attempts at and done a few tracks like it, but I was like, shit, I could do a whole record like this. And I think that was a big thing. But I think while that was maybe the overview effect, I pushed into that a bit more. Like I think I have well, Stick gave me credit earlier for the record. I don't think he understands how much the words changed how I produce it. So like perfect example would be Cost of Business, which was I think the version I probably sent you was kind of like a 4 bar loop, really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then when he sent it back and what it was about, that track out of all of them actually was the one I was like, holy shit, I could really create something special here. And I kind of think I remember I worked on the hook and I would have I think I even tried Run DMC, like Nas. It's like that, it's like that, I
Mm-hmm.
would have tried lots of different ones, like just the Snoop one sounded the best, of course. And then so I was able to have a kind of built-in hook because I thought we actually had a double hook in the way Stick delivered it. So it's kind of two hooks. And then kind of like the idea of what the song was about, it allowed for like, I suppose, the buildup of the tension and then the aftermath of like, I suppose in my brain, a funeral is what it was. And that's when I suppose I got an Irish pianist and composer,
So
Daniel Luke involved to kind of do that. Um Rob Peter, Paul Bear kind of piano solo for like
Hmm.
2 minutes, which, you know, if I brought that to some rappers, then they'd be like, what the fuck is this shit? Yeah. But I I I kind of knew Stick, like I trusted Stick would be into it, and I that's good that I knew he might trust me. So I really thought it told the story in like a beautiful way, and then we're able to kind of go into the most rapidy rap song after that. So
yeah,
to lose people. So yeah,
hell yeah, yep.
yeah,
Yeah, I
Um,
thought the piano part is like it's still one of my favorite moments on the
yeah,
first
me
side of the
too.
record. Is like the way that the energy of it, and then like the arrangement in the final
With the
part of the
strings,
record,
yeah,
the
yeah,
strings and the drums kind of getting louder, and the whole like really, really, really great moment.
yeah.
yeah,
So actually,
and
yeah, that probably doesn't sound like it. I suppose when you're talking about where I'm from, like
Hmm.
that's, I suppose, there the sample that is like such a, you know, €5, $5 record over
mm,
here. It's a real like throwaway kind of
Wow.
crappy record from the '60s.
hmm.
But then the kind of outro and the 808s is the heavy drums, and the reverse drums is actually kind of like DJ Quick inspired. And then the strings, I suppose, is like I used to work for my job for another few years after Tower Records was to be a distributor for you. So I used to buy in and sell jazz and classical music to all the shops in Ireland. So
Mm.
like I used to listen to jazz and classical all day. So that's maybe where that bit comes in. And then the piano piece after that as well. So yeah, it's a mishmash of styles for sure. But the drums got a bang.
They
Hmm.
gotta, and they
Hmm. And
do.
they do, and they do,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they do.
The
Yeah.
musical diversity on this album is really something else just in general. And so, Stick, as a lyricist, could you describe what drew you into rapping over this kind of production versus maybe something a bit more conventional?
Uh, I just always want to do something else, man. Like it's just like kind of my personality. Like I'm just kind of a obstinate kind of guy. Like I could just rap over, jazz loops forever, and I could just rap over trap stuff. Like, I mean, you guys are giving me credit for versatility. I think a lot of that comes from the time, well, my location and coming into hip hop, being from a place like Topeka, Kansas, Kansas City area, where we don't have, I mean, we have influences, but we don't have like a big artist other than Tech Nine who also just kind of forged his own way. So there's kind of like just the inclination in me to just kind of rebel and do something else, like do something that doesn't sound ordinary. And it's just more interesting for me. I mean, it's just a lot more fun
And I'm
to.
just gonna hop in there because I suppose although we've never talked about it, I kind of knew that because of where Stick was from, that I suppose my experience of growing up in hip hop, like you guys have no idea how much of an outsider I would have been in my like town because of what I liked. So, you
Mhm.
know, even hearing hip hop over here in the 90s or 2000s was like so difficult, you know. So like that's why I knew like a lot of the people Stick probably works with other people, you know, they're West Coast, they're East Coast, they're down south, whereas like you know, I was buying an Alcoholics record, an album by The Click, and then the album by
Mm.
Nas all in one weekend. And I was just kind of like, yeah, you know, this is just all dope. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, same
So like,
experience. Yeah.
yeah, so like I would have kind of fed off everything. And I suppose I didn't feel attached to a location per se, and I kind of have a feeling Stick felt the same.
Yeah, like that's a lot of it. And I mean, and then in addition to just liking, just loving music, man, like my mom's really big on blues. My dad's really big on funk. My sister, my older sister, she's probably the person who put me on to hip hop in the first place. Like, and then my cousins put me on to the the uh the underground hip hop, the 3 6 Mafias and the the Scarfaces, and kind of gave me these understandings of like socially what made something cool versus
Mm.
something that's not as cool or corny, like being a kid and being like, I like Hammer or Crisscross, or like don't like that no more. Like your older cousins, your
You're
older
like,
cousins just
the
like
jump
don't.
beat still bangs, man.
Jump still does. It does. But at that impressionable age, when my like I said, my cool cousins, they're like, no, 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 no. It was Scarface. Listen to Rakim. Listen to, you know what I'm saying? Like, listen to this. Listen to this. It'll make you cool. You know?
Mhm.
So I just think I had such a gumbo of music that I liked, and the local music that I was attracted to, that's a part of me as well, that never got accepted outside of outside of the local market,
Hmm.
that that I like, love and know religiously, is like Mandarin to anyone else's ears.
Mm.
So I've kind of just already accepted that whatever I do, it's probably going to be left of center, even when I'm trying to be regular. So I might as well just go all the way in and just
And,
do exactly what I want,
and I suppose I knew that working like when it came to record, like if you listen to some of those records he's made over the years, especially some of the conductor stuff and how I suppose out there it is, I
Mhm.
knew a song like President Street or Service, you know, that
Up
Stick
my
would
alley.
see
Yeah.
that, yeah, see that as
Yeah,
a
like
challenge and do that.
Joyland has
Whereas,
a couple joints that are fucking, well, the whole album's nutty, but there's a couple joints that remind me of that. Now just like
yeah, whereas
completely,
some rappers
yeah.
just wouldn't take that stuff on, you
They
know.
wouldn't be able to do
Mm.
it, let alone want to. Like that's the thing. Also, I'm wondering, Stick, is like how much of a challenge was it for you to rap over these kind of like very dynamic, shifting type productions versus like something else, like a very simple loop? There's not
That's a
much of
good
that
question.
going on here.
That's a good question. It's challenging. Like there's some that's more challenging than others, right? Like I think it may surprise people, but Green Monster is probably the most challenging rhyme for
Mm.
me to write, because I was trying to find, and shout out to Solemn, because like
Killed it.
he killed it. I gotta give it. He killed me on there. But like I'm really proud of my verse, because it was like there was a there was a there was a rhythm to it that I was trying to catch, and I was like digging into my different cadence bag, and every time I wrote it, I didn't like it. Funny enough, like I would like the way I write. I don't know, going into the process, like I get in my car, I play beats, and I just drive around, and I freestyle to myself and mutter just like consonants and just sounds and
Mm.
things before there's any words there. And then I start putting words in that place of whatever the cadence I've come up with it.
Mm-hmm.
But with that Green Monster joy, I just couldn't find one. I was like, oh, yeah, I don't know. But the beat was so hard that I was like, I have to rap on this. Like, I cannot let this one get past me. You know what I mean? I can't let this one whoop me. So, so yeah, there's definitely like moments of challenges, like, but then strangely enough, songs like the one with Def C came to
Mm.
me really easy. Like,
Interesting.
yeah, it's there's
Yeah.
so it's just a matter of like what I can lock into and what kind of a vibe I can catch with the production. You know, President Streets that came easy to me. Like that's like up my alley. But
Mm.
sometimes like the all like that took me a little bit to come up with like how I wanted to rhyme. Like I knew what I wanted to rhyme about, but like just trying to find the right cadence and the right feeling sometimes takes me a little bit. So, but I'm always up for a challenge. Like that's the thing. Like that comes with it. Like Pusha T is one of my favorite rappers. So like I hear a song like Numbers on the Board, I'm blown away by stuff like that. I'm like,
Hmm.
what made him like you have access
That
to
beat is crazy.
it's such a
Mm.
crazy beat. But then like from a rapper's perspective, I'm like, bro, you have access to Kanye West. He could have easily just given you a a reminiscent soul sample
Yeah.
perfect
Mm.
loop with the downbeat and the you went with this one. You know what I mean? It was just distorted bass and what sounds like a xylophone kind of just
Mm.
skittering across, and it still just sounds fire. So stuff like that just intrigues me, and it's what I'm just generally going for. Like I just like I like a challenge like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like outside of the aesthetics of the album, aesthetics of your flow, there's a significant level of openness and introspection. And I think now talks having this conversation, the whole thought of this potentially being your last album kind of already gives me more context in terms of like why you're talking about the things you are talking about on this album. But could you elaborate on the kind of themes and
Hmm.
like in your and like messaging in your lyrics that you were mainly focused on exploring on this album?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I was writing from is a place of like conflict, the feeling of conflict. It's like an example. It would be like on Yah's shorthand. I talk about my daughter and all of these like altruistic moral ideas, but then like on the second half of the eighth, I'm talking about I will send you to I'll kill you behind her.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are opposite of one another. Or uh, on the intro track, Black America, where it's like, all right, we're in this country, we want to be treated fairly. But we still recognize that this is the way this place operates as it relates to us and class and all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was the main talk of cost of business is like, you know, the streets have its rules and its rules of engagement. But what comes with it is usually death, isolation from family, you know what I mean, prison time. But it's something you love. These are things you're intimate with. You know, people like cost of business was like that whole list of things from my own environment, where it's like these are things I love that I know could land you in prison or get you killed. So it was just like the main thing was just like conflict, like uh things that bump up
Mm.
against one another that are not easily reconciled. And I think that came across pretty well.
Yeah. No, I like that. That it definitely added a nice complexity and like a bit and like something for me to chew on lyric like as a listener
Yeah,
because it
yeah,
wasn't as straightforward, but not really being in the sense of like it's all very abstract because I don't mean it like that. It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
like
for sure.
it's not you're being pretty literal when you're saying things, but it is still just like making me think is the point, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's
So that
interesting.
was I think that was the main goal of the writing was just like there's always a duality to things, and most things don't get tied up in nice, neat little bows like in
Mm.
the movies, you know, where you watch a film and you know there's the protagonist and then there's the conflict and then there's the resolution and then everyone's happy with the way that it ends. But sometimes it's not like that. So it was the same thing with this with the writing for this record and the perspective that I was kind of writing from was yeah, how do you just tie up life?
Wow.
It's a
I
messy
love that.
Yeah.
messy thing.
That's a
Yeah,
bar.
That
yeah.
is.
You can't just you can't. So I don't. You know what I mean? Like when I
Yeah.
write,
Yeah.
I'm like I can't. So I don't. You know, I don't just make it nice and neat for myself. So the listener definitely is gonna have to come away with their own messages.
I mean, you said something about a TV, and I'm reminded because I actually later, much later than most, because I was just really busy over the past month. I finally finished Succession. I don't know if any of you guys have watched
Yeah.
that.
Just
Yeah, I love
recently.
it.
And I finished the
Yeah,
finale like 2 days ago, and that's without
yeah.
spoiling it. Obviously, it's not a spoiler. Just being like, I thought it was great, but I really was kind of a consistent theme with that show, and particularly the finale, is that how committed they were to just sticking to what was real versus making like I want to satisfy the classic
Yeah.
American TV
Mhm.
tropes where it's like I was seeing some reaction some kind of like analysis after of the show on some podcasts, and they were talking about how like most finales, and I've seen this many times, where it's like even the little secondary characters, they always get their final little moment. They're like
Mm.
their little soliloquy to be like, okay, cool, we can say goodbye to Jerry. We could say like,
Yeah.
no, you see
Right.
Jerry across you see her once in one scene, and that's it. Like it's
Hmm.
just, and the way it ends is just like it was so fitting. It was so
Mm.
kind of not neat and tidy. Like it could have went on for another 5 seasons, but like no, this is how it
I
was supposed to end, and this is
I
what our
think you can
vision
tell
was.
it was not an American who wrote it, to be honest
Oh
with you.
yeah, the British aspect of it is
Yeah,
in the
because I think
comedy. Yeah,
the
like
Americans do tie it up in a bow. They're kind of forced to, if it seems like. Whereas, yeah, the British don't like to do that. I'm
yeah.
surprised they gave
Yeah.
4 seasons. They normally do less.
Yeah, that's you know what? I used to love Luther, the show Luther. I
Yeah,
believe it's a British yeah, it's a British show.
yeah.
And I'm like, where's the rest of it? Yeah,
Mm.
in the States we'll run something in the ground.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We got
yeah,
how many seasons of Law and Order?
Oh
Law and Order just never ends, bro.
yeah.
Like so
yeah.
I was getting into Luther and I was like, it's only
I know not many of the
seasons of this.
shows know when to call it quits. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's important to know that. Like, I don't know, you
At
watch
least The
Barry?
Wire did it like from a different viewpoint, which I think totally worked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, some of the others they should have shut up shop a little bit earlier.
yeah, man. It's a good show. Luther is a good show. I was just like, I thought
Yeah,
there
man.
was gonna be a lot more. It was like, nah, they were done.
Mhm.
They're done. I think they did like a movie. They did like a
The
feature
movie
like
was
way later.
yeah.
They didn't have to do that. And then I was like, oh, I see why they. I see why. Okay, you guys ran out of ideas. You just ran out of ideas. It's
Yeah.
cool.
Mhm.
It's cool. But
And
yeah.
so
That's the theme of the record is just that life ain't neat and tidy. There's lots of conflict. There's lots of unresolved things in life, and it be like that
Mm.
ultimately. For each one of those records.
you guys got some very dope features from like some very kind of respected OG heavyweights, as well as some people that are a little younger and also heavyweights killing it. You got Blue, Def C, Tanya Morgan, Solomon Brigham, Sleep Sinatra. They really they all kill it. Every single feature you guys had here. I'm reminded of like I think like one bar that I got from that Def C feature. He said, okay, I wrote it down. He said like the when their bank accounts wait, hold on 1 second. He said when their bank accounts the upper half of chip bags.
Yeah.
That is
Mm.
oh God,
Yeah.
that guy is a
F
menace.
is hard, bro.
You guys got some crazy collabs. So just talk to me about like the thinking behind including these particular guests in your cast on this album.
Expert got good taste.
So expert, you were the one that were mainly selecting and reaching out.
Well, I suppose I put a bit of a wish list together and I tried to see who Stick could corral into the show, I suppose, and pretty much got nearly everyone. I think there was only a couple other people we talked about who we didn't get on the not that we didn't get, but nothing happened. But there was like a couple other names
Hmm.
thrown around, and one of them I'd still love to work with, which is YU,
Ooh,
from Diamond District. I
yeah.
absolutely love his voice, and love just he's a brilliant rapper. But
Yeah.
no, I think we both had actually a similar enough list when we actually put it together, but I think the one we probably the song we probably struggled about who should we pick or who should we ask was the Green Monster as far as I remember. And then I think I might have thrown out some. I was like, oh my God, Solomon Brigg would be amazing on this. And I couldn't
Yeah.
when we got him and we got that verse back, oh, it was crazy.
Yeah. Oh, that boy, man.
Yeah. But
I
no,
got
most of it actually it all coming together is all stick. Like
Mm.
yeah,
I mean,
Tanya Morgan, I hooked up the Tanya Morgan one. Yeah.
Tanya Morgan is, yeah, that's
Yeah.
big. Because, like, yeah, being from the Midwest, bro, like, Tanya Morgan is like, that's definitely like a template type
Hmm.
Mm.
group. Like, they're like little brother for me. I mean, little brother's little brother for me. But, like, Tanya Morgan was like one of my early introductions into like independent hip hop. And, yeah, that's big. That's a dope record. I'm very appreciative to both of those guys for being willing to
Mm.
do that record. It's like my favorite song. One of my favorite. I like the whole record, man.
That's
Hmm.
my favorite beat.
But that
Yeah.
beat,
Which one? The
crazy.
Tanya Morgan track?
Yeah,
Yeah, the four
damn.
beats really.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just tough. And Von P, what do you say? We got rappers in the A room, right? You got rappers in the A room writing your songs, and they ain't leaving with publishing at all. I was dying. I was like, yo, dude is the one, man. He said they
Yeah.
know how to fake friends. He said they don't know how to do nothing but and how to fake friends. Oh yeah, and where the bodies is hid. You'll be next. Vaughn ain't getting his. Like, bro, he went super crazy, man. Shout out to Tanya Morgan, man.
Man,
Great
Yeah,
they're
man.
they're
Love
great.
those guys.
that record. Love.
Was it reaffirming in a way to be able to enlist such great artists on your album, all on the same one?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
Amazing.
so validating.
Like I'll flat out say, like I couldn't believe we got Blue. Like I
That was,
was,
yeah. Shout out to
yeah,
Blue, man.
yeah,
Like, that actually was one of the easier ones to get done, which really surprised me. Like, me and Blue
yeah.
have this very like 360 relationship because the first show I ever played in my entire life was opening for Blue in Kansas City. And I think me and LaRon tried to get a Blue feature on City Under the City and couldn't.
Mm.
Mm.
And because they've worked together. So I was just like, man, it'd be so dope to work with Blue. And then, yeah, I think we just reached out to him.
And he fits
And
that
he just
beat
said
so
yes.
perfect.
And I was like, what? Is that he? Really? Like, I was waiting for the other shoe to fall on that. Like, it would be like, nah, man, I'm super busy. I can't. But he's just like, okay, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, that was,
Okay.
I think that might have been the first one we got back.
Yeah. Might have been
Yeah,
the first one we got back. And he just killed it. And he,
yeah,
such a good verse.
Yeah,
Such a dope
I love the
transition.
way the scene was set on the production too for his verse to come
Yeah.
in. It was incredible. Yeah.
I just knew he'd fit that so perfect. Like, yeah, and he's got such a great voice, Blue. Like, so
Yeah.
many good records behind him. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Another one of my top 25 if
Mm.
people are doing lists, but Blue is
Mm.
like
His number
Go
one.
to Heavens is one of the best.
His number one.
Yeah. Straight up. Okay, straight up.
No,
Blue
who is?
one.
No, who's your number one?
My number one rapper like ever? It fluctuates, man. Uh it's somewhere between Nas, Scarface, Common. Somewhere those people
Oh, you're a
Common.
Common
Wow,
fan. Fuck,
that's high.
I fuck with that. I don't think Common gets enough love.
I think
Common, man.
Common's discography is so dope
So
compared
Man,
to
solid.
most
like
people's.
Water for Chocolate, B, and
He is
fucking
amazing.
Resurrection. And then I also think Electric Circus is hella dope.
If
I
it would
Hella
have
really
came
dope.
like
out
the
at a
one with the
different time,
Dreamer, the Nas one. What's that? That whole record is great.
The
yeah,
one with Nas? What?
Yeah, well, it's
Oh,
got the
it's oh yeah,
soundtrack
yeah,
on
yeah,
it.
I know. That was 2010. That was the No ID record.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that record's brilliant.
Dreamer the Believer.
Yeah,
Dreamer Believer. Yeah.
super
Yo,
dope.
that get yeah, that track. That's I have a particular. I don't really. I wouldn't say I like love the album or anything, but I have a particular connection with it just because that dropped in 2010. I was in grade 10. That was probably the peak of. That was the first year I really started to listen to music like heavy, heavy. I always was liking
Mm.
it, liking it. Had an iPod. That one. That was the first Common record I think I like listened to as a fan of hip hop and like listened to in full like a real fan. And
Mm-hmm.
Ghetto Dreams, man, I love that song so
Yeah.
Okay.
much.
And there's a song on that called
He's dirty
Sweet.
on that shit.
Ah,
Sweet, yeah, that was like the
yeah.
track where he's dissing Drake.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
beat is so dope.
Common is just consistently good. I was actually just talking to Anwar about this. I said Common in a roundabout way is the reason I had confidence to pursue rap because he was he was from the Midwest. He was making East Coast style music, but he still like wore the Chicago
Mm-hmm.
all
Mm.
over him the whole time. And I was like, yo, that's I just connected with that in a way. The Resurrection video, well, I'm a little older than you guys, but the video for Resurrection was like, I don't know, man. It's hard to even put into words, but that video was just like, I was like, ah, Rap City, seeing
Mm.
this guy, spattering the guy, like the way he was rhyming, super dope with the abstract and the references. It was just, yeah, Common, man. Common underrated, bro. Well, Common's in my top like five.
Mm.
Wow.
Okay,
Goat.
is there other like so just talk to give a take a moment to talk about where people can find Ritual as well as just anything else you guys are working on outside of this.
Mm, mm. What you got, expert? Expert got all the information. I know it come out on the 16th next
Of
week
June. Yeah.
of June. It's gonna be on vinyl, which I'm super excited about. And you get it on Bandcamp. Is it gonna be Bandcamp Friday? Oh, is that?
No, I don't
No.
think it is
They
Oh,
Bandcamp
actually
Friday.
don't even they're not doing Banquet Friday till August.
Yeah,
They took
no,
like
it's
the
not
summer
Bandcamp Friday.
off type thing for some reason.
I
Yeah.
don't like that. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll be needing that. What else, man? I mean, I'm not working on anything else. Like when I tell you I have no more raps to share, like I have some stuff I did, like just verses for homies and stuff, but the ritual is
Is
man,
it? Yeah.
that's it, man. Like, but I told expert man, I think it's the most. I don't think I'm overselling it by saying this, but I think it's the most stick figure record, like the most definitive, the most. It's definitely one of those that in the future, if people were like, I want to get into stick figure, how do I do it? I think the ritual is
Yeah.
gonna answer that question going forward. Like I think
And like,
previously it was City Under the City, but this one expert did it, man. You gotta give credit where it's due. He did it.
and I suppose I would have said to Germicide instead the same stick figure. My
Yeah,
job, I suppose I see is to make the definitive body of work for the rapper that I'm working with, and I'm it's not up for me to choose, but I
yeah.
absolutely love this record. I love it. And super proud of it. And yeah, and
What else you got down?
actually
What else you got coming, man? Break
I
that exclusive.
just finished mixing the next one.
Is it like with a
Awesome.
rapper or is it a producer?
Yeah, it's with a
Yeah.
rapper. So
Okay.
Can't
it's
spill
kind
the
of a
beans.
I don't I know I don't think I should, but I suppose more of an up and comer than kind of an established rapper, but I had a ball doing it, and I suppose it's another kind of psych opus, I think, and oh man, I fuck with it heavy. It's really dope.
Do you think I would know the rapper?
Um, I'd say you might have heard his name and know bits and bobs, but I have a feeling you may not be that deep into his catalog. And
Okay.
I
Hmm.
love him. I absolutely love his record. I was here probably a couple of years ago, right where I am now, and I checked out one of his records, and I was pissing myself laughing at how funny this dude was. And just how clever he was. And
That's what I
Funny,
said.
funny. The funny part's making me think funny.
Funny.
and my missus came in and she was just like, I haven't heard you like laugh or listen to music like this in a long time. And I was like, I gotta contact this dude. This dude's incredible. So yeah,
Boomer and up and
I think
coming.
if people don't know him, I think after this record, I hope they start to pay attention because he's incredible. And that record also has some crazy features on it. So super excited.
I that's so
hopefully we
intriguing me. The
hopefully
funny
Yeah.
part is like, who are you talking about?
Right, that's what I'm
Hopefully-
doing too. I'm like, oh, okay, good.
Look, hopefully we're here talking again early next year
Yeah.
about it, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm excited for that, and I'm just excited for people to hear this record. I think
Yeah,
it's
me
definitely
too,
one
man.
of
It's
the
all about
most
ritual now.
yeah, definitely one of the most unique records
Good
anybody
order.
will hear this year. And I think I was saying this to you, expert, prior to us recording. Like, I feel that this one can really appeal to different kinds of rap fans.
Yeah.
Because it's got the kind of traditional golden age stylings at times that people who like really are in that space can love. And then it's got more kind of modern experimental flavors that a lot of people are fucking with a lot these days too. And then the bars are always there for people who just like need good rhymes. So it's like I really just think this is a really versatile record and it'll appeal to a shit ton of people. And yeah, great work. Everybody check this out. June 16th. Drop in
Thank you.
Rucksack Records. Appreciate you guys lending time to come on the show and talk about it.
Yeah.
This is fun.
And shout out to Danny from Rucksack.
Yes, for believing in this record.
Indeed.
Because I was like, yeah, the vinyl piece is just so special, man. Like, I'm just really excited to have, like, I know physical is
This
not
week.
as popular as it once was, but like being able to hold it and it's beautiful. Like, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, shout out Gavin on the artwork. It's beautiful.
Yeah, man. Album of the year. I ain't heard everybody's records, but it's album of the year. I know we up against some stiff competition, but I'm calling it album of the year. You gotta speak things into
Us and Woods, let's go.
Yeah, Us and Woods. Yeah, that's right. I don't know who else dropped. The Griselda has been real quiet, man. What's that about?
They got the Knack one I really like. SC Knacks dropped recently last month.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna keep it cool because you're gonna post this somewhere. I ain't gonna say nothing. Don't say nothing. But yeah, okay, yeah. He did drop. Album of the year. Rich.
Like I have to say, I think the AJ Suede is killing it this year.
AJ Suede is hard.
Oh
Shout
god,
out.
Parthian Shots. Crazy.
And for the Indica one,
Indica music
AJ
was
Suede
this year
is
too. Yeah, that was
dope.
January, yeah.
Yeah.
And Sleep is dropping with
So
Yeah.
Televangeli, yeah.
too.
That's
So-
like later this year. Later this month.
Yeah, later this month. So make sure y'all check that out. The Midwest
Yeah.
Homie. And
And Def Prez record was great.
Mhm.
Def
and,
Prez, Def Prez is hard.
I know the Shrap. I don't know if the
Sketch is
Shrapnel's
hard.
coming out this year, but that Shrapnel record is going to be crazy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the time. This was awesome. Hope you
Thank
guys
you,
have a good
man.
rest of the
Yeah,
day.
thank you. And thanks for all the great work you do being such a spokesperson for dope underground music.
For
Appreciate
sure.
it. Anytime.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Peace.
All right. Y'all be cool like y'all be cool. Later on.
Saying Dublin
Peace.
after.
Peace.
So there we have it, another episode of the Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV. I hope this episode gave you some new perspectives and insights into what the greatest art form known to man in hip-hop music has to offer. If you want to support the show in the most meaningful way possible, it would be my absolute honor to have you as a patron in the new Rap Music Plug podcast Patreon. Through this Patreon, you will be getting exclusive content such as bonus episodes, exclusive album recommendations, exclusive playlists, early access to episodes, and more. And above all, though, you will be able to support the show directly in a way that will not only justify the crazy amount of time I spend on this show already, but allow me to cover some of the expenses related to supporting all of these great artists that we cover on the show through the website, and will allow us to sustain and build on this amazing growth that the RMPP has experienced recently. So if you have any questions about any of the Patreon stuff, or just want to keep tabs on the show, interact with me on rap music and all the great stuff that we can talk about, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at rapmusicplugpod, or shoot me an email at qlctv.podcast@gmail.com. You can also rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify as well. But that's enough self-promotion for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.